What if I told you that a PhD student sitting at his desk in 2024 typed something into Google and accidentally discovered an entire city, a city of tens of thousands of people, hidden, perfectly intact beneath the jungle canopy, and that when scientists fired lasers from the sky into those jungles, they didn't find a few ruins. They found a civilization twice the size of England, with highway networks, water filtration systems, and raised agricultural fields that we had simply never seen before. What if I told you that these people, with no metal tools, no wheels, no horses, calculated the orbit of Venus so precisely that their numbers, even today, lose only 2 hours across a 584-day cycle? Or that they invented something so fundamental to modern mathematics that without it, your smartphone cannot function, your bank cannot process a transaction, your GPS cannot locate you on a map. And they did it in a rainforest 1,200 years before Europe figured it out. That civilization is the Maya, and we are only just beginning to understand what they actually were. Welcome to Mystique History. Have you ever wondered what it would truly feel like to walk through a living Maya city, to eat their food, stand beneath their pyramids, and look up at the same stars their priest astronomers were tracking with naked-eye precision that still astonishes modern scientists? Let me explain. But first, before any pyramid, any calendar, any cosmic revelation, let's go somewhere that no history documentary ever takes you. Let's go to an ordinary Tuesday morning in the Maya world. Because before you can feel the weight of what these people built, you have to feel them breathing. The jungle wakes before the sun does. Around 4 in the morning, the howler monkeys begin their territorial calls, a sound so deep and resonant it vibrates through the chest wall, a sound that carries 3 miles through dense canopy. Then the birds, hundreds of species erupting into overlapping songs as the sky shifts from black to violet to the deep burning orange of a tropical dawn. The air is already warm, warm and thick, the humidity settling on your skin like a second layer. And then, rising above the tree line, catching the very first light, the white limestone peak of a pyramid, freshly plastered, glowing gold against the dark canopy like a signal fired at the sky. This is Tikal, northern Guatemala, somewhere between 700 and 800 CE, the absolute apex of what historians call the Maya Classic period. And it is not a ruin, it is alive. At its peak, Tikal is home to somewhere between 50 and 100,000 people spread across 60 square kilometers of urban landscape. 6 enormous pyramid temples dominate the skyline, the tallest reaching over 70 meters, taller than a modern 20-story building, constructed entirely by hand, without iron tools, without the wheel, without any draft animal larger than a dog. And yet they are so precisely engineered that they have stood for over 1,000 years in one of the most seismically active, biologically aggressive environments on Earth. Fungus cannot claim them, roots cannot split them, hurricanes cannot topple them. Because the Maya understood, at a structural level, exactly what they were doing. The city is already moving by the time that orange dawn light reaches the plaza floor. Farmers, and there are tens of thousands of them, managing an agricultural system so sophisticated that modern ecologists are still reverse engineering its techniques, are heading to their fields along the broad white stone causeways called Sac Biob. These sacred roads are not merely paths. They are elevated, engineered highways, wide enough for heavy traffic, deliberately elevated above the jungle floor to remain passable even during the torrential rains of the wet season. They connect neighborhoods to markets, markets to ceremonial centers, cities to other cities, a network that recent LiDAR surveys have revealed stretches hundreds of kilometers across the lowland jungle. Roads we could not see until we fired lasers from aircraft into the canopy. That LiDAR technology, light detection and ranging, is the same tool that in 2018 revealed something that fundamentally rewrote our understanding of Maya civilization. A survey of just 2,000 square kilometers of northern Guatemala uncovered over 60,000 previously unknown Maya structures. 60,000. Roads, reservoirs, fortifications, agricultural terraces, suburban neighborhoods. The research team immediately revised estimated population figures upward, from 5 million to somewhere between 10 and 15 million people at the civilization's height, in a jungle that we thought we knew, under a canopy that was simply hiding everything. But back to Tuesday morning, back to the street. The market opens at dawn, and if you have never imagined what a Maya market looked like, stop for a moment and really picture it, because this was not a simple barter economy. This was a complex, multi-layered commercial system with its own currency, its own long-distance trade networks, its own professional merchant class. The currency is cacao beans. Yes, chocolate. Actual roasted cacao beans, carried in woven bags, exchanged for obsidian blades sharp enough to shave with, for jade ornaments carved with a precision that defies the stone tools used to make them, for fine cotton textiles dyed in rich reds and indigos, for salt brought from the distant coasts, for rubber, actual vulcanized rubber used to make the solid heavy balls for the ceremonial ball game that Maya cities played with the intensity bordering on religious fervor. And here is something almost nobody tells you about Maya rubber. The Maya were vulcanizing rubber approximately 3,000 years before Charles Goodyear patented the process in 1844. They mixed latex from rubber trees with juice from morning glory vines and heated the mixture to produce a bouncing, elastic, durable material. Modern materials scientists who analyzed Maya rubber artifacts found that the resulting composition was remarkably similar to industrially vulcanized rubber. 3,000 years earlier, in the jungle, with no reference point except their own accumulated knowledge. The smells in that market are overwhelming in the best possible way. Freshly ground cacao mixed with chili and water, the Maya drinking chocolate called xocolotl, served cold, frothy, slightly bitter, absolutely nothing like the sweet milk chocolate you're imagining right now. Maize tortillas cooking on flat clay griddles, the steam rising in thin white columns, copal incense burning in ceramic censers, a sweet, resinous, slightly medicinal smoke that the Maya associated with divine communication, the prayers carried upward on that fragrant column, dried fish, fermented honey wine called balche, tropical fruit stacked in wooden crates, cacao pods, avocados, papayas, sapote. Maize was not simply the foundation of Maya nutrition. It was the foundation of Maya metaphysics. The Popol Vuh, the great Quiche Maya creation epic, one of the most extraordinary literary documents to survive from the ancient Americas, tells us directly humanity was made from maize. The gods tried other materials first: mud, wood. These failed. The mud people dissolved in rain. The wooden people had no memory, no gratitude. So finally the gods ground white and yellow corn, mixed it with water, and from that dough they shaped the first true human beings. Every person walking through that Tikal market was, in a cosmological sense, corn-given consciousness. Every meal was therefore not merely sustenance, it was an act of recognition, a reminder of what you are made of. The children in that market are playing a game of numbers. Because in the Maya world, mathematics is not merely a tool for accounting, it is a form of sacred literacy. By the 1st century CE, Maya mathematicians had independently developed what is arguably the most consequential concept in the history of human thought: zero. Not merely as an absence, but as a quantity, as a placeholder, as a number with which you can compute, calculate, build an entire positional numerical system. The Maya wrote zero as a shell, a spiral, beautiful and precise, representing the completed cycle, the moment before beginning. And from that shell symbol, using a base 20 numerical system of dots and bars, Maya mathematicians could calculate numbers in the tens of millions, with a fluency that medieval European mathematicians simply could not match. India developed zero independently around the same period. The rest of the ancient world did not have it at all. Without zero, there is no algebra. Without algebra, no calculus. Without calculus, no physics as we understand it. No engineering, no computer science, no digital technology. The concept sitting at the absolute foundation of the modern world was independently discovered by a civilization in a Central American rainforest that had never heard of Greece, Rome, China, or India. They got there on their own. Now look up from that market. Look past the pyramid peaks, past the macaws wheeling overhead in flashes of red and blue, past the morning clouds still caught in the highest canopy. The sky is the real center of this civilization. Because the Maya did not merely live beneath the sky, they read it, tracked it, mapped it, and organized their entire existence around the information it contained. Maya astronomy was not a hobby. It was not a curiosity. It was a state function, as important and carefully maintained as agriculture, diplomacy, or architecture. And what the Maya achieved with naked eye observation, patient record-keeping across generations, and architecturally embedded instruments, buildings literally designed to function as astronomical devices, stands as one of the most remarkable intellectual achievements in human history. At the summit of those pyramids, before the market opens, before the city fully stirs, the astronomer priests are already at work. They have been watching Venus, and they have been watching Venus for a very long time. Venus was the most important celestial body in Maya cosmology after the sun itself. Associated with the feathered serpent deity Kukulkan, the same figure known to the Aztecs as Quetzalcoatl, Venus embodied the cycle of descent and return, the heroic journey into darkness, and the triumphant reappearance as the brilliant morning star. Maya astronomer priests tracked Venus across a synodic cycle of 584 days, with such precision that their calculations, encoded in the Venus tables of the Dresden Codex, lose only 2 hours across that entire span. The Dresden Codex is one of only 3 surviving Maya books, painted on fig bark paper in vivid red and black, preserved in Germany, still readable, still remarkable. It contains eclipse tables, planetary almanacs, ritual calendars interlocked with astronomical cycles in a system of such computational elegance that modern mathematicians study it with admiration. The Dresden Codex also contains a detail that almost no one outside of specialist circles knows about: a table predicting solar eclipses. Not recording past eclipses, predicting future ones. The Maya had identified the mathematical relationship between the solar year, the lunar cycle, and the eclipse cycle, the so-called Saros cycle that modern astronomers still use today, independently, through sheer accumulated observational data, centuries before the European scientific tradition had anything comparable. But for the Maya, astronomy and spirituality were not separate categories. They were the same thing, expressed in different languages. The sky was a theological document. Every planetary cycle was a divine narrative. And the Maya king, the Ajor, was the living point where the celestial and the terrestrial intersected. Think about that role for a moment. The Ajor's body was understood as the axis mundi, the cosmic center, the point where 3 worlds touched simultaneously. Above, Oxlahun Tiku, the 13-layered heavens, each with its own deity and astronomical identity. Below, Xibalba, the underworld, a vast and elaborately structured realm ruled by 12 lords, described in the Popol Vuh with the specificity of a map, not a metaphor. Lords with names like One Death, Seven Death, Puss Master, Bone Scepter. And in between, the living world, the middle world, anchored at its center by the Waka Chan, the world tree, the great Chiba whose roots reach into Xibalba and whose branches touch the Milky Way. The Maya called the Milky Way Waka Chante, the raised-up sky tree. And when they looked up at the broad sweep of the galaxy across a cloudless tropical night, no light pollution, no atmospheric interference, the stars so bright and densely packed they seem almost touchable, they saw not random light, but the physical body of the cosmic tree connecting all realms of existence. The constellation we call Scorpius, they identified with the cosmic scorpion. The dark patches in the Milky Way, the interstellar dust clouds, they recognized as constellations of absence, shapes defined by darkness rather than light, including a great dark serpent and a dark jaguar. This is an entirely different way of reading the night sky, not connecting the bright points, but reading the shadows between them. And the kings reenacted these cosmic narratives in stone. The Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque, in the highland rainforests of Chiapas, Mexico, is one of the most precisely engineered structures in the ancient world. Built by the great king Kainich Janab Pakal, who ruled Palenque for 68 years beginning in 615 CE and died at the age of approximately 80. It rises 9 levels above the jungle floor and contains, built into its interior, a long, steep staircase descending to a buried chamber at its base. Pakal's sarcophagus is at the bottom of that staircase, and the staircase itself is aligned so that on the winter solstice, a shaft of sunlight descends its entire length, illuminating the tomb at the bottom. The king's journey into Xibalba, his descent below the world in the mythological tradition of the hero twins, replicated in architecture every year, every solstice, for eternity. The lid of Pakal's sarcophagus, rediscovered only in 1952 when archaeologist Alberto Ruz-Luillier followed a drainage hole in the temple floor down a sealed staircase and found the untouched tomb below, is carved with an image of such cosmological density that scholars have spent decades unpacking it. At the center, Pakal is shown at the moment of his descent into the underworld, falling backward along the world tree. Above him, the celestial bird, the great principal bird deity, perches at the tree's crown. Below him, the skeletal jaws of Xibalba open to receive him. Serpents frame the edges. Astronomical symbols fill every available space. It is not a picture. It is a three-dimensional theological argument carved in limestone, a king's final statement to the universe. I know where I am going. I know what this means. I have played my role. That sarcophagus lid also contains one of archaeology's great misadventures. In 1968, a writer named Erich von Däniken published a book called Chariots of the Gods, in which he looked at Pakal's sarcophagus and declared he was seeing a man in a spaceship. The image spread globally. Millions of people believed it. Professional Maya archaeologists, many of whom could actually read the hieroglyphic inscriptions surrounding the image, inscriptions that clearly and specifically describe the king's cosmological descent into Xibalba, spent decades wearily correcting this misidentification. But here is what is genuinely interesting about the mistake. It happened because Maya cosmological visual grammar is so completely fundamentally different from any Western visual tradition that a person untrained in it can look at an extraordinarily complex theological image and see whatever pattern their own cultural expectations suggest. The Maya didn't design their art to be universally legible. They designed it to be understood by people who already knew the language. The calendar system those priest astronomers maintained was the intellectual infrastructure of the entire civilization. Not one calendar, 3 interlocking ones, running simultaneously like gears in a cosmic machine. The Tzolk'in, 260 days, 13 rotating numbers against 20 named days, used to determine the sacred character of each day and to set the timing of every ritual, ceremony, agricultural activity, and royal decision. Every child born into Maya society was given a name derived from their Tzolk'in birthday, a name that encoded the sacred character of the cosmic moment of their birth. The Hab, 365 solar days, 18 months of 20 days each, plus a final haunted period of 5 days called the Wayeb. The Wayeb was considered genuinely dangerous, a liminal threshold when the normal barriers between worlds weakened and uncertain energies crossed over. Maya families stayed indoors during the Wayeb. They extinguished fires. They avoided unnecessary contact with the world. They waited. And when the new year began on the other side, it was as though existence had been renewed, because it had. The calendar said so. Layered beneath both of these was the long count, a linear chronological system capable of tracking hundreds of millions of years without repeating counting individual days from a fixed mythological creation date corresponding to August 11th, 3114 BCE. The long count inscriptions on Maya stone stelae, the tall carved limestone monuments that Maya kings erected at regular intervals to announce themselves to time, record dates in a 5-position notation that reads like cosmic coordinates. And those stelae are, in themselves, one of the great archaeological treasures of the Americas. Standing in the plaza at Copan in western Honduras, surrounded by the densely carved stelae of the classic period kings, each one a full-body portrait carved in a level of sculptural detail and emotional expressiveness that rivals the best work of ancient Greece, you feel the weight of a civilization that took its relationship with time so seriously that it carved its position within eternity into stone every 5 years just to make the record clear. And now, consider what happened to those records. When the Spanish arrived in the Yucatan in the early 16th century, they encountered a Maya civilization that had survived the classic period collapse, had rebuilt in new configurations, and was still, 600 years after the great southern cities had been abandoned, producing literature, astronomy, mathematics, and art. The Spanish, in their systematic effort to erase the indigenous spiritual traditions they encountered, ordered the burning of every Maya book they could locate. Bishop Diego de Landa, in July of 1562, oversaw an auto da fe at Mani in which an unknown number of Maya codices were thrown into a fire. He wrote afterward, "We found a large number of books in these characters, and as they contained nothing in which there was not to be seen superstition and lies of the devil, we burned them all, which they regretted to an amazing degree." An unknown number. That is the phrase that should haunt you. We don't know how many books the Maya had produced over their 1500-year literate tradition. We don't know how many tables, histories, astronomical records, medical texts, legal documents, literary works, and philosophical treatises went into those fires. We have 3 surviving Maya books with certainty, the Dresden, Madrid, and Paris codices, and fragments of a 4th. 3 books. From one of the most prolific literate civilizations of the ancient world. The rest is silence. And yet, what the Spanish could not burn were the inscriptions in stone. The glyphs carved into temple walls, pyramid staircases, stelae, altarpieces, and ceramic vessels by Maya scribes across 15 centuries. Tens of thousands of surviving texts, many of which remained completely undeciphered until the late 20th century. The breakthrough came in the 1950s, when Soviet linguist Yuri Knorozov proved that Maya writing was not purely symbolic, it was phonetic. The script encoded the sounds of the Maya language. It could be read aloud. And from that revelation, over the following decades, an entire civilization's voice began to re-emerge from stone. Names, titles, relationships, political histories, cosmic declarations, and yes, intimate personal details. A king recording that he is the son of a specific mother, that he ascended on a specific sacred day, that the stars were in a specific alignment at the moment of his coronation. More than 6 million people today identify as Maya. They speak 28 surviving Mayan languages. They live in the same geographic area as their ancestors. Maya scholars, many of them Maya themselves, are actively working to reconnect their communities with calendar traditions, astronomical knowledge, and hieroglyphic literacy that colonization tried to extinguish. The Tzolk'in calendar is still maintained in some Maya communities in Guatemala, with an unbroken chain of daykeepers who have counted its 260-day cycle continuously for over 2,000 years, not as a historical curiosity, as a living practice, as a way of understanding what time actually is. And in 2024, a PhD student scrolling through Google found a dataset originally commissioned to measure carbon in Mexican forests and discovered an entire Maya city hiding in the data. 6,674 structures, including pyramids, right next to a highway, visible from a road. Invisible to archaeology for 1,000 years because the jungle had simply grown back over it. And when scientists analyzed the LiDAR surveys of the surrounding region, they found that our total sample of documented Maya civilization had, until very recently, covered only a few hundred square kilometers. The actual civilization covered hundreds of thousands. We are not at the end of understanding the Maya. We are somewhere near the beginning. The jungle still holds more than it has given up. Every year, new surveys reveal new cities, new roads, new reservoirs, new agricultural systems of staggering complexity and ecological sophistication. A civilization of 10 to 15 million people, building interconnected urban networks through a tropical rainforest, without the wheel, without iron, with mathematics that predates European equivalents by centuries, and still, after all this time, still being discovered, still being read, still speaking, in stone and starlight, to anyone willing to learn their language. Some civilizations leave ruins. The Maya left a conversation. If this story reached you, if you felt that particular vertigo of realizing that the world was vastly more complicated and more brilliant than you had been told, then you already know what to do. Hit subscribe. Ring the bell. Because here at Mystique History, we don't just tell you what happened, we take you inside it. Every single week. And there is so much more to go. I'm your host at Mystique History, and I want to know, what historical event should I recreate next? Let me know in the comments.